Hello friends, good morning. Nice to see you. Yeah, nice to see your greetings and your reminders that it's Wesak. It's sort of, it's Wesak today. I always think of it as actually being tomorrow morning in a way, because it's right the night of the full moon and then going into the early morning. But anyway, yes, it's Wesak, most auspicious day, and yes, as some of you are pointing out, it happens this year that Wesak falls on my birthday. So very auspicious for me. So that's nice. Yeah. We've been talking about the Buddha's, that sort of time around Wesak, in terms of the original Wesak, Buddha's life, and just kind of in terms of the ways that reflecting on elements of that story can be just instructive. It's interesting, right? Because it's like, you reflect on anything, and it can be instructive. Reflect on anything just a little deeply. Just give a little thought, go into it, and you find something about the whole of life, because everything contains everything, in a way. So we just looked at, the Buddha's kind of rigidity when he started practicing, and we used that to reflect on ways in which we might uncover and explore our own rigidity. And we looked at Sujata offering rice pudding to the Buddha, and the ways we might use that as a reflection about what offering is, and what kindness is, and what real nourishment is. So today we might just reflect on that next bit of the story. So having recovered his strength from the nourishment of the rice milk, the Buddha felt re-enlivened, revitalized in terms of his capacity to practice, his interest to practice, and having the energy to practice. And so then he walked off. It's just about a kilometre, a little more, through the paddy fields and the coconut, the toddy palms, from where he was sitting, where Sujata offered the rice milk, to where he then came to sit in this sort of grove of sala trees and peepul trees. And that's the spot that's still there now in Bodh Gaya. And you can still go there and you can still sit under the tree. And it's not exactly the same tree, but it's a sapling, or at least there was a graft or a branch or something was taken from the original tree to Sri Lanka, and so that they had the child of the Bodhi tree in Sri Lanka. And then when the original tree died in Bodh Gaya, they brought back a sapling or graft or whatever from that Sri Lankan tree and replanted it on the spot of the original Bodhi tree. So it's the grandchild of the original Bodhi tree. And some of you maybe have been to Bodh Gaya. I've had the good fortune, I suppose, to be there many, 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 many times. I sat a month-long retreat there every year through the 90s. And then I started to teach that same retreat that I'd been sitting all through the 90s. And so there was another 5 or 10 years. I probably was there almost every year for about 15 years. And I've also taken groups of Dharma students back to Bodh Gaya. And it's really quite extraordinary, fabulous place. I mean, it's a place of pilgrimage. So it's full of trinkets and people selling Buddhist stuff, and it has all the trappings of the marketplace in that sense. And it's also in one of the poorest and most illiterate and undeveloped and politically corrupt parts of India, And so it's very desperate and difficult, you know. And it's one of the least fertile bits of India as well. And so it's just kind of dusty. And yet you arrive there, and in the midst of all of that stuff, there's this rather wonderful serenity. The tree and the stupa, which is built next to the tree, the temple, is set in these big grounds, and the grounds are full of other stupas and small temples, and also just shady places where people can sit and practice, where people are doing prostrations, where people are chanting, when people are doing nongdro practice, which is like making 10,000 mantra offerings, or 10,000 mandala offerings, or 10,000 prostrations. And then there's people from all different, like there's Zen pilgrims, and there's Pure Land pilgrims, and there's Mahayana, Vajrayana, Theravada pilgrims, and everyone has a slightly different way of chanting, or of walking, or of praying, or of meditating. And it's all going on in this sort of wonderful, great masala of practice, great big mix of practice. And amongst all of that, there's quite remarkably an amazing feeling all around the stupa of peace. It's kind of, there's many thousands, sometimes tens of thousands of people there, all practicing in different ways. And then this great movement constantly of people circumambulating around the stupa. And the murmur of whispered mantra and whispered prayers. And it's a very rather wonderful, extraordinary feeling, often very touching for people who visit. So, meanwhile, I'm also struck when I'm there by the irony of the fact that the Buddha went there because it was a nice quiet place where no one would bother him. And I always imagine the Buddha seeing these tens of thousands of pilgrims and these selling of Buddha statues and all of this stuff, and thinking, geez, what's the matter with you people? Can't you find your own tree to sit under? Rather than flocking to this one tree where he went because it was a suitable, quiet, secluded place to sit. Anyway, that's what we're like as humans, and that we like a bit of veneration. And it's a beautiful thing to that way your heart gets inspired to actually contact a spirit of devotion, gratitude, appreciation, wonder, and also to reflect on a sense of lineage and tradition, blessing. Beautiful. So anyway, the Buddha went there after getting his rice pudding, and while sitting in the shade, quite casually, just sitting, not sitting up to meditate, just sitting casually in the shade of the tree, he had this memory of being a child, or a teenager, resting similarly in the shade of a tree. And in the memory, he remembered watching people going about their business, working in the fields, etc., etc. And he remembered this quality of being simultaneously relaxed in the shade of a tree, but also very alert, sensorially awake to the sounds of the day, to the feel of the sun, to the movement of the people going about their business. And he'd had this really great stroke of insight that was the way he needed to practice, or that was the way he needed to attend to experience, in a way that simultaneously both of those qualities, right, awake, attuned, receptive, really listening and sensing and feeling and opening to experience, and simultaneously relaxed, not trying to do anything, not trying to get anywhere, not trying to attain anything. And it was with that recognition that he then kind of straightened his back a little and entered into the meditation that would become the Mahabodhi meditation, the Great Awakening. That's the name of that stupa now, which is built next to the Bodhi tree. It's the Mahabodhi stupa. Maha, great, Bodhi, awakening. So that's what's most instructive. And it's, funnily enough, without necessarily referring back to that insight of the Buddhas all the time, I feel like that's so much of what I'm trying to accompany people with, or trying to remind people of in Dharma teaching, is that quality of awakeness, right? Alertness, receptivity, attunement, which is already here. You don't have to do something to be awake. You don't have to do something to meet experience. Like, are you having to do anything to just hear the sounds of my voice right now? No. And just move your attention to seeing. Are you having to do anything to see? No. Excuse me. And then just move your attention to just the natural, whatever sensations stand out to you when you feel yourself sitting here. Do you have to do anything? No. I mean, the only thing you have to do is direct your attention. But attention goes very, very easily. Attention moves very, very easily. And that's both the blessing. Well, attention moves easily. And it's also the difficulty. Oh dear, attention moves very easily, right? And so our practice is one of letting our attention, learning how to have our attention not move so much. Mind still moves, and the world moves, sounds move, sensations move, everything moves. But our attention can become fuller, richer, brighter, deeper. And how does it do that? Not by trying to force our attention to stay in one place, but by this twofold practice, right, of being on the one hand awake to the fact that our attention is here, and experience is here, and everything is here, and on the other hand relaxing, nothing to do, nowhere to go, nothing to attain, no one to be. So, let's sit easily together, gently together. As if relaxing in the shade of a tree. While being awake to whatever appears within this relaxed awareness. And these are the conditions in which the Buddha sat on the night of awakening. Until tomorrow we'll explore the outflows of that night, the significance of that night, the realizations of that night, the way the whole earth trembled and shook in recognition of the Mahabodhi, the awakening that arises out of this relaxedness and alertness simultaneously. So please, friends, take your seat for meditation. Might start with this quality of sitting as if in the shade of a tree. Quality of being here that's relaxed and undemanding. You might feel for the pleasure in that sense of resting in the shade of a tree. Feeling relaxed, letting one's limbs be loose and heavy. And letting the breath come and go very naturally and freely. The letting go of any ideas of what could or should be happening. the resting into being here. And as you rest, as you settle, noticing that you can rest and settle into a natural sense of awakeness, an unconstructed, uncontrived quality of wakefulness. Awake in the breathing. Awake in the aliveness of bodily sensation. Awake to the flickering of thought and the streaming of sound through awareness. Awake, right here, like this. Relaxed and awake. And because attention moves so easily, just inviting your attention to settle into the simplicity of feeling this body sitting, feeling the breath breathing. Just this, relaxed and awake. And settling your attention into the breathing. Again and again, if necessary. And more, if possible. relaxed, effortless, gentle, and awake, receptive, open. And you can use the in and out breath to support these qualities without doing anything, without changing the breath in any way, but just using the natural feel within the in-breath of expansion for that sense of alert, open, receptive. And using the natural quality of relaxation and the out-breath to support the quality of being at rest, at ease. To relax and be awake. To relax into awakeness. It's to see experience clearly. Its arisings and passings. It's to see the way our attention gets seduced, hijacked, led away, the way we get tight around experience. And it's the invitation to relax that, release that, to open the tight fist of clinging. To abide as the mind of non-clinging. Relaxed in your face, in your shoulders, in your belly, in your being. And awake, naturally, already. Receiving the evidence of this awakeness in every sound that you hear, like the sound of my voice right now. The evidence of this awakeness in every moment that there's experience. And then the practice of using this relaxed presence using this awakeness of mind to settle and soften and sensitize your attention, to be here more fully. And find out how that can be more relaxed and more awake. Just like this. Our last few minutes of the sitting. Whatever's going on, whatever quality of experience is, whatever the state of your attention is, relax. Nothing to do. Nowhere to go. Nothing to attain. No one to be. Relax and be awake. Awake in the breath. And equally awake to whatever objections might appear, whatever grasping might arise, whatever attempt to understand or manage experience. Relax. You're already awake. And may we all relax into being where we are. May we all know the awakeness that we are. May we all realize the promise and the true possibility of this practice. May we all know the liberation into which Buddha is constantly inviting us. All right. So I've got time for a few questions. Nice to see your reflection, Wolfgang. Yeah, I remember being there with you, and nice to see you here. Yeah. Before we get into the questions, I always speak about dana briefly every day. And of course, same thing. Here's Sangha Live, works on this basis, tries to support you, invites your support. And dana is the way that support happens. And I'm just reminded that in the Tibetan tradition, this day of Wesak, or Sakadawa, as it's called in Tibet, is one of the ways it's framed is that it's such an auspicious day that any meritorious action undertaken on Sakadawa, the benefit, the merit, the good karma of it is amplified by thousands of times. So I was just thinking, maybe that's a good motivation you offer dana. Offer €10 today and you get the benefit as if you'd offered 10,000 euros. So, I'm not sure that's really the best motivation for offering dana, but it's out there in the Buddhist universe, that idea of the amplification of goodness. And of course it's kind of folkloric in nature, right? It's beautiful to be reminded, to use this day, full moon of May, to be reminded of these things, to kind of orientate to reflections. That's what any kind of observance day or festival day or whatever, memorial day is about, right? It's just a time for marking something, a time for reflection, etc. But it's, we can hold very lightly and loosely this idea that actually the day is somehow charged with some kind of special power, and that, that some of the more, not exactly superstitious, but some of the more just kind of hagiographic, or some of the stuff we get carried away with. Anyway, all of that to say, your dana is very welcome, and I've enjoyed this week. It's not over yet because there's tonight and there's tomorrow. Tonight being Wesak and tomorrow being, we'll be here again for meditation. But I just enjoyed this week reflecting a little on Wesak and its meaning and elements of the Buddha's life, and going into some of that stuff a little bit more than we might otherwise. So, yeah. All right. Maddie says, do you not find clinging useful at times? No, absolutely not, under no circumstances. I mean, where there's suffering, there's clinging. Where there's clinging, there's suffering. And that sounds kind of simplistic, but if one reflects there, that's pretty unambiguously clear. I would say I can understand definitely, Maddie, the sense that surely some situations we need some clinging. And the invitation would be reflect. What do you mean by clinging? Maybe you're understanding clinging in a different kind of a way. What clinging most essentially refers to, and mostly what are the things we cling to? We get tight around, right? Unhelpfully, this is what clinging means. It means being unhelpfully tight around some aspect of experience. We get unhelpfully tight around our desires, what I want and what I don't want. It doesn't mean we shouldn't have desires. It means, notice, are you unhelpfully tight around your desires? Oh, it's never useful to be unhelpfully tight around something. Oh no, what happens to that if we can hold it more lightly and loosely? Like if we can let go of the clinging. We get unhelpfully tight around our desires, what we want and don't want. We get unhelpfully tight around our views and opinions, what we think and believe, and all the ways we can argue and get convinced and get into kind of narrow-minded. And then we get unhelpfully tight around who we think we are. Those are the main kind of areas or categories of clinging. I don't think it's ever useful to be unhelpfully tight around our desires or our views or our sense of identity. It's fine to have views and have desires and have, use a sense of identity in various ways, but no, let's not be unhelpfully tight around it. All right, what else? Somebody asked about the Buddha's love life. Where are we? Did the Buddha have a significant romantic relationship? Is there any teachings by him on deep soulmate karmic relationships? So yes, the Buddha was married in his early 20s, and he had a son, and then he left home and left his family in his late 20s. And there's a kind of whole debate about that. How could the Buddha be wise and compassionate? He went off and left his wife, etc. Yeah, but we're talking about an India of 2,500 years ago, where the marriage and romance wasn't very linked at all. Marriage was very much like it is to some extent still in India now, and the system of arranged marriages. Marriages were about family alliances, and a marriage was really not just between two people, but between two families and living in very extended families. So the Buddha didn't sort of abandon his wife and child to some kind of, lonely life, and didn't make his wife into a single mother in that sense. They were embedded in a whole sense, in a whole network of wider relationships. But if you want to, teachings on clinging, if you want teachings on clinging, go to the Buddha. If you want specific exploration of deep soulmate karmic relationships, Buddha hasn't got anything for you. There's many, many other people that have got much better experience and much better advice, and it's probably going to be contemporary, right, advice on wise relationship, skillful relationship. I don't think the Buddha or anybody else, I don't think India of 2,500 years ago isn't a good place to look for deep, rich, fulfilling exploration of relationships. But if you want one single teaching on relationship, which I think is very helpful, very true, and very Buddhist, but you might not like it, here it is. Relationship is dukkha. Relationships are dukkha. Dukkha means suffering, unsatisfactoriness, difficult. That's the great thing, and I say that as somebody who's been in a relationship, in a kind of ongoing, deep, intimate, long-term primary relationship for 30-something years, right, with my wife, Gail, 33 years, I think. So that's not a cynical view of relationship. That's the recipe for success. Once we realise there is no happy ever after, right? You can have a deep relationship. I'm not sure about soulmate. Some people think they've got a soulmate. That's nice. I'm not sure about that. But but relationships are work. Like everything, right? Nothing is inherently satisfying. And that's not a miserable thing. It's actually a recipe for navigating everything freely. Because when you stop expecting something to be somehow the soul nourishment I need, then you can actually make good use of it and be nourished by it because you're not expecting too much. And one of the places we expect too much is from relationship. I was to meet my soulmate, the person of my dreams, then somehow my life would be complete. No, it wouldn't. No relationship has that power. Despite the happily ever after fairy tale mythology of movies. So if you're clear relationships are dukkha, then you can really make good use of a relationship, make the most of a relationship. But don't expect it to solve all your problems and to completely completely fulfill all your desires and to complete you in some way, because it doesn't have the power. It can feel like it does briefly when you first fall in love, but that's part of the problem. You fall in love, you think, oh, this is it, and then you expect the this is it to carry on over time. You can't. It's a contingent, right? It's dependent on the process of falling in love, and then that falling in love isn't an ongoing state. It's a wave. You fall in love, then you fall out of love, and then you start doing the work of love and seeing how can you actually navigate a relationship. And there's all kinds of beautiful, brilliant qualities in a relationship. Get to really see yourself in a relationship, because you can't fool the other person for very long. You can fool them for a while, and then they start to see how you really are. A lot of other less intense relationships, you can fool people better for longer, but in close relationship, you can't. So people get to see you, at your most open and deep and beautiful, maybe, but also at your most petty and your most judgmental and your most, unglamorous. And it's valuable it's valuable to have to go along and to be exposed in that way to somebody else. So I don't know what you might make of those few thoughts on relationship, but there you go. And then somebody else, everyone wants to know about the Nadi also asked, when the Buddha awoke, was he not deprived of human touch? How did he overcome this in his life? Well, you'd have to ask, I'm not sure how much the Buddha was deprived of human touch or not, like post, in his monastic life. But one of the things that happens in the monastic life, well, let's be honest, there's a lot of covert sexuality in monastic life, right? Because I think it's often not handled well. We have a deep need and longing for human contact. And in a celibate situation of a monastic life, when that's not acknowledged, ends up going sort of underground, hidden forms of sexuality, often homosexuality, because men and women are separated in monastic life. But when it's operating healthfully, a lot of like within the forest tradition, the Thai tradition particularly, there's a lot of like the monks massage each other's feet. Junior monks massage the feet of senior monks, and it's something very, very beautiful. And I think it's also foot massage is good. I love foot massage. It's, you know, there's all the stuff of how the you know, you can get to all the different organs through the feet, which is, but it's also beautiful in terms of it. There has devotional associations, massaging someone's feet, junior monk, senior monk, foot massage. But it's a way of expressing affection that is outside of the realms of sexuality, which in a monastic situation, you know, the sexuality isn't appropriate. Nothing, no judgment on the beauty and intimacy and power of sex in a non-monastic situation. But, and you know, those qualities of touch, contact, love, you know, connection can really be. That's the way they get healthily expressed. Yeah, one old monk. I was talking about this with one very old, very kind of well-known, much venerated monk, and we were talking about the massage of the feet, and so it made some. I can't remember actually exactly what it was now, but he made some joke to me about students massaging my feet, and I said, no, we don't do that. And the lay situation, and he said, oh, you know, what's the point of having students if you can't get a foot massage? So, but since, you know, that flows through the monastic tradition, and when my own teacher, not my Buddhist monastic teachers, but when my Indian sadhu teacher was dying, I spent a lot of time massaging his feet, and it's one of the most lasting kind of touching memories I have of him. He was ill at the end of his life and in pain, and he found the foot massage soothing. And for me, I just found it's like, oh, I'd found my way to thank him for all the blessings that his life had afforded me somehow. You know, not explicitly, but it's what it felt like. It felt like just through the touch, through the contact, through the love, kind of a way of offering some gratitude. What else? Nicola says, you said in the meditation, no one to be. That sounds right if I'm alone, but if I'm with others in a meditation hall, I find this not so easy. When I change my posture repeatedly and think I'm disturbing the others. Yeah. Can you say something about that? Yeah, you're not disturbing the others, Nicola. Just if you need to move your position, move your position. Others might disturb themselves, right? But let's face it, they're probably so wrapped up in their own stuff, they're really not giving any attention to you. You know, just like you are, where you're wrapped up in your own stuff, you're thinking about your moving. How much do you really bother if somebody else moves? You know. So mostly, you know, people aren't bothered whether you move. And if they're bothered, it's their problem. Right. If you're actively seeking to bother people, that's something else. If you're going around poking people while they're meditating or trying to be annoying, no, that would be totally inappropriate. But you're not. You're just moving to give your legs some ease. There's no bother in that at all. Like I say, they might bother themselves. But if they do, if they come up with some concern, or why is Nicola moving, or oh, that person's moving a lot, that's their stuff. So yes, no one to be, especially around others. You know, because that's where we tend to project who we think we need to be. That's where we generate sort of self-consciousness and concern. What do they think of me? Trying to impress, or trying to hide, or trying to disappear, or trying to, too complicated. Yeah. And of course, it's very common, right? So you're speaking for many others as well, Nicola. Yeah. All right. Good. So I'm seeing we're at the top of the hour. Some of you did ask yesterday about Wesak tonight, and I really considered it, but I don't think it's going to work out. So several reasons. One, I just have quite a full day today because it's Wesak, and it would be difficult for me to set up the technology needed to be able to have Zoom working in the Dharma hall at night time. Secondly, because a lot of what I'll say during the Wesak thing tonight will be some sort of variations on things I've said this week. So we've had that here. Yeah. And also because if you really want to sit tonight for Wesak, don't sit on a Zoom connection with me. Go outside. Sit under the moon. Much better. Sit with the moon instead of sitting with me. Much better. All right. So I see that Ruth, you've got another question there, and maybe there are others below. Yeah, there are others below. But time has escaped us. Feel free to paste in the questions tomorrow. I might not be in sparkling form tomorrow if I'll have been sitting up tonight, but we'll manage. All right, friends. And we'll also chant the refuges tomorrow. So if you're familiar with refuge and you like that, I'll offer the refuges tomorrow. It's a very auspicious moment to take refuge or to orientate the heart towards those beautiful qualities, the 3 jewels. Yeah. All right. Thank you. Thank you for all the happy birthday wishes as well. Yes. See you tomorrow.